Hi everyone, Sean Healy, change agent and relationship consultant here. Welcome to the Relationship Resourcing Series, a series designed to support people in their business and personal relationships. Today's episode is understanding emotional abuse. Before we begin, I just want to warn people that for some of us, we might find this content very triggering, so I just want to flag that up front. Because any type of form, any abuse, physical or non-physical, in relationships can be stunningly painful and toxic if we've been exposed to it in our relationships. And that's why I thought today, talking about emotional abuse, an area that's really misunderstood, that's what this episode is about. So away we go. Today's episode around understanding emotional abuse, if we look at the kind of idea of abuse in relationships, and then we drop down into two basic subsets, physical abuse and non-physical abuse. Both are stunningly painful to experience, stunningly toxic. But today's focus, like I said, is on non-physical abuse. And in particular, if we look at the subcategories there, we can talk about verbal abuse or emotional abuse. And the two certainly overlap. However, verbal abuse, even though it's done behind closed doors, is often, an element of that is where our partner really attacks us very vigorously and aggressively and directly. I can't believe you're such an idiot. Why are you trying to start fights all the time? Can't you do anything right? It can be sometimes very overt in the way that they are demeaning and controlling us and playing that power over game. When we're looking at emotional abuse, we are looking, some of the elements of emotional abuse are so subtle that both the abuser and the abusee have no idea that they're actually engaging in toxic dynamic. And so this is why it's so important for us to really begin to understand more about the kinds of dynamics we're in and indeed the kind of symptoms that we're in. I myself have been in emotionally abusive relationships, and they can erode your self-esteem, they can erode your sense of self-trust and self-belief, and you can come away feeling really unlovable. And I certainly know experiences where I've stepped out of relationships at the end and I'm just exhausted. I'm exhausted psychically, I'm exhausted spiritually, I'm exhausted physically and emotionally, and I just feel so wrong and so unlovable. And towards the end of the relationship, I would be thinking, how does this person put up with such a screw up like me? Wow, aren't I so lucky that they still are willing to tolerate me? We're fine, we're constantly on eggshells. But it's this deterioration over time that really puts us into these stunningly painful positions and these really sort of negative self-concepts and negative emotional feelings about who we are if we've been on the receiving end of this. It's a very large topic. I certainly can't cover it all in one episode, and we can certainly split it up into two elements: what happens on the abused side and the abuser. Because like I said, sometimes we meet emotionally abusive people who have no idea that they're actually emotionally abusive, especially because if we grew up in toxic family systems and this is what we saw, then this is our normal, this is our unconscious familiar. So it's important to recognize sometimes when we come across these dynamics, what we can say about ourselves or about others that we witness are in this experience is, why are they choosing? Why are they choosing to be there? Just choose not to do that. It's not that simple. Long-term, progressive, debilitating abuse, it's not that simple because we've been eroded at our core. We're really weak, we're under-resourced, we're hyper-vigilant, we're full of doubt and self-loathing. As a result, it's difficult. So you need to be compassionate. You need to be empathic and understanding both of yourself if you're going through this, and also if you're holding witness for somebody who is going through this, because We need to be building ourselves up, not criticizing ourselves for what's kind of happened. Especially if it creeps up on us, it's done so slowly, because some of these abusive tactics are very covert. Emotional abuse, if you want kind of a bit of a definition of it, it's when, especially, is non-physical manipulation, punishment, demeaning, belittling acts that engender somebody else's sense of control. They're not there. The intention behind these behaviors is not to build us up and not to have a more mutually powerful relationship and deeper connection, but rather we end up walking away from these dynamics feeling demeaned, belittled, corrected, punished, and really uncomfortable about who we are as a person. So what we want to sort of talk about is what are some of these, what to look out for is some of these dynamics. One is when we have entered into a dynamic with our partner where it's the critical parent and the naughty child. We feel like we're always being corrected. And again, what makes this difficult is the emotional abuse can come with a smiling face. Oh, look at you. You've done that wrong again. You're really not very good at that, are you? I was going to say something earlier, but I thought it was more helpful to just let you fall on your face and make the mistake, because I don't want to be caretaking of you. I don't want to enable you. And so it can be disguised as guidance and correction, but it doesn't leave us feeling good about who we are. It doesn't leave us feeling inspired. It leaves us feeling wrong, belittled, stupid, and full of doubt instead. So we can flag that there's something's not right about the smiling face and the warm tone. We can really fall for that when we think that a smiling face and a warm tone mean functional, loving, unagendered advice and dynamic. That's where it can be so confusing, and I certainly know that one for myself, where I've really fallen for the nice person act, and not seen it for the puppet strings behind it, so to speak. And if we've always grown up with that, well, that's our normal, and we have to forgive ourselves for that. We have to take time with that to come back out and recognize when, even if there's a smiling face on the end of the advice, is this advice actually in our best interests? And that's difficult to ascertain when we're already stressed, hypervigilant. Other signs are when we're finding ourselves on eggshells in our relationship. We're not quite sure which way our partner's going to go. There's radical shifts in their behavior. There's this punitive, punishing kind of element, not in terms of, it's often we find that if we're on the receiving end of withholding behaviors as a kind of a form of punishing us and shaping our behavior. I remember being in dynamics where I would be with partners that wouldn't speak to me for days, and I'd get the absolute freeze out. And what that evoked in me was absolute terror and abandonment, and I'd be desperately trying to apologize for whatever it was that I've done wrong. I would have no idea as to what I had done wrong, but I'm absolutely certain I have. And there would be part of me going, what's wrong with you? Why can't you see what you've done wrong? You're such a fool. Oh, well, apologize anyway. Hopefully they'll stop this and they'll take you back into their warmth and their affection. And the age regression where you become, almost like a frightened little child, desperately trying to get the parents' approval. And so we'll do anything. And so what happens is we end up hypervigilant because we're always watching, we're always trying to check and monitor our behavior, and we always feel like we're the one doing everything wrong. These can be really symptoms of this kind of space where we're being maneuvered, when we find that there's a sense that our partner is better than us, and we're less than to our partner. That is often a strong indicator that our partner seems to have it all together. They seem to think that they have the right to make all of the decisions in our relationship. And what we find is we're doing everything that they want and nothing we want. They might be controlling the money. They might be questioning all of our expenses. They might be questioning where we're going, who we're speaking to. And if we can't account for ourselves, then they're accusing us of some subplot. Oh, well, you must be out flirting, or you must be wasting your time, or, and so there's this constant sense that we're not believed by our partner, and that we, oh, well, maybe I am doing something that's kind of not right, and it's just that I'm not aware of it. It really engenders self-doubt over time. It erodes self-trust, it erodes self-belief, and we really do start to believe that we are wrong as a person. And again, this puts us into an even more vulnerable place. So it's so important that we start to become clearer around some of the dynamics that play out. Do we have a platform of mutual respect between ourselves and our partner, or do we really get the sense that our partner thinks they're better than us, that they know more, that they're the smart one, we're the dumb one, they're the together one, we're the misfit, the fallout, and if anything, it's a privilege for us to be in relationship with them. And again, that can come out in ways in which they belittle and make fun of us, either privately or publicly. And when we try to voice our pain around that they become dismissive. Oh, look, don't be so sensitive. It's just a joke. Everyone knows you're a muck-up anyway. So, I'm not telling people anything they don't know. I can't remember the last time you made more money than me. If anything, I probably, really, if I was smart, I'd be out looking for another partner right now, because it's not like I couldn't get one. And there's these little side throwouts, these little threats about leaving us, about how they're doing us a favor by staying with us. If we're not behaving in ways that they want, we might not be engaging in activities that may be sexual or non-sexual. But our partner seems to think that they have the right to, because we're together, that gives them the right to inform the way we behave, whether or not we want to or not. It's part of partnership, and you need to be doing what I demand of you, because I know what's right and you don't. And we can have these boundaries where, or lack thereof, where our boundaries are steamrolled over and ignored, and they might be done with a smile and just a pitying look. Oh, if only you knew better and understood, you would get why I'm doing this for you, because it's really in your best interests. Again, these can be such, there's almost an element of pity as they kind of address us. Oh, if only you were more together and better. So painful. And so dysfunctional. And when we start to recognize this is where we can assess what we want to kind of do. We can get some support. We can realize this is not all about us. We can start to set some boundaries, and then we can potentially start to heal, because sometimes, again, this dynamic is so unconscious. It might be so familiar to the both of us because what we grew up in. And if we point it out, and both parties are willing to make change and have patience to deal with deeply ingrained unconscious patterns that can take time, because we can go unconscious in our relationships and the dynamics start to play out again. And it's just about coming back out, observing what's going on, and then addressing. But we have to have two people who are willing to engage in that. It can be really painful to recognize if we are the abuser in the relationship, that we are the one that always believes we're right. We're the one that believes that we're the one that's got it all together in the relationship. Well, if I didn't kind of parent and guide my partner all the time, then they'd be an absolute mess. So what choice do I have but to constantly tell them what to do? Things like this are not going to get us anywhere. They're not going to build intimacy and connection, and they're only going to lead to further toxic dynamics. So there's a lot more that can be sort of said about this. It's a very in-depth topic. Some of it's so subtle and so insidious and erodes over time. But I hope that gives you at least a couple of signposts to start to look for. And sometimes we can't necessarily articulate, but we're paying attention to when it doesn't kind of sit right for us. And we go, I don't know what it is, but I don't feel good when I don't feel better about myself when I come away from that exchange. I actually feel a little degraded. I feel a little wrong. I don't feel uplifted and inspired, but rather kind of more doubtful. These can be sometimes little clues that even if we can't articulate what's going on that's not in our best interest, we can start to kind of focus in, because, you know, we need to be separating these kinds of toxic dynamics from our identity and our worth, and realizing that we are innately worthy, that we are beautiful, wonderful, that we deserve love, and we deserve present, respectful relationships. And so we can start to take the steps towards that if we're not there. And, you know, if you sense this, it can sometimes be very difficult to identify, especially for third parties. So you need to find people who can facilitate this and who have an understanding of it, because the problem with therapeutic intervention sometimes is both couples show up on their best behavior and may be absolutely unconscious as to some of the key toxic dynamics that are going. Both parties might not know what to point to that gets the best possible help. So we need to be sourcing people who have some understanding of just how toxic and harmful emotional abuse and verbal abuse and non-physical abuse in general is. Because like I said, a lot of this goes on behind closed doors. A lot of it's very subtle and sometimes very difficult to own. And so it can be missed sometimes when we're seeking support from others. So we need to make sure that we're finding people who are supportive, who are non-shaming, and who have a degree of understanding around what's going on and how to hold space for the couple if the choice is, and we get the sense that this is something we can repair from. So no doubt there'll be some other episodes on this as we go, because like I said, it's a very broad field. But once again, I hope this has given you some ideas and some things to think about relative to this kind of topic. There's lots of stuff you can source on this that will be of wonderful value and offer you some insight, because like I said, once we can articulate some of the dynamics that are going on, then we can take control and we can make change. So I really wish you the best in all of your relationships, and I hope this helps. Thank you for listening to the episode and watching, of course. Sorry, I just fell back into podcasting mode there. Thank you for watching the episode. We hope you join us on some more. We have topics that range from business dynamics to personal dynamics and family dynamics. So take your pick. But yeah, if you would subscribe to the channel, very, very grateful. If you already have, thank you very much. And if you want to engage with me more directly, emergencetraining.com.au. I offer private consultations, face-to-face or online, and also I do in-house and public-based trainings, looking at all kinds of how we have better interaction, better people-based culture in whatever environment we find ourselves in. So once again, thanks for watching the episode. Really hoped you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.